All right, so on your quiz today, super simple, super short. If you practice, I don't think a lot of people practiced in second period because I don't think a lot of people did very well. There's only 3 questions. They all really revolve around this one thing. This is pretty much all you have to do. The only additional thing you have to do is know how to put a point on a graph once you have the table. That part should be pretty easy. Who thinks that they can explain and is willing to explain how to create a table? If I give you an equation, and I'm not worried about the math part on this, just remember the quiz today is on absolute value, but I'm not going to do absolute value for the how to create the table. But we will practice that today. You will practice that today. Phones up. How, if I have an equation and I want to graph it, and I tell you create a table to graph it, what do? What do you do? Kristen, what are you doing? Do something. What do you need? You're going to graph something. What do you need? Question. What do you need? What's on a graph? What's the graph over there? It's on a graph. How do you put a point on a graph? What do you need in order to put a point on a graph? Well, I'll take anything at this point. What do you need? Number. I take numbers. You need numbers, right? Specifically, Ray, what kind of numbers? We need X and Y values. So yeah, we need numbers because these lines all represent numbers, right? I may not draw it. Give you numbers, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, -1, -2. I don't know at all. So you need numbers. Specifically, we need X and Y. So when it says create a table, which is specifically what the graphing question says, I'll tell you what, let's zoom out. I don't know where I'm at. All right, highlights. Let's try that. All right, that's pretty good. So you will do this for, actually, I think I've even already put the table on there for you. So now we know we need to come up with some X and Y values. That's how you put a point on a graph. You need an X and a Y. An X and a Y makes 1 point on a graph. Now we're you paid a lot of attention when I was helping Chris on it, so you should be good on this question. Intently watching it.
And what was the question again?
You can't hear me. You're both not hearing. All right. So what do? That was my question. What do we do? What is this thing telling me to do next? Very good answer. So if you can't answer my questions, leads me to believe, hey, you're not focused on me. So I want earbuds out. If you can answer questions, I'll cut you a little slack. When you can't answer questions, second period's already, they're about done with homes for a whole quarter already, a weekend. They aren't doing anything. Kaylee, what do you do? Next up. Don't worry about absolute value yet. We'll cover that when we get this, because this one's not absolute value, right? This equation is just regular y, x, nothing special. So yes, when you have absolute value, there's a more specific step, but let's just say no absolute value, just an equation with an x and a y. What do we need? What did we say we needed? We needed x and a y, right? So we need some numbers. The first number you pick, the x is always going to be the first, and we're going to solve for y, can be whatever you want. You can pick 1,300,000. No, that won't fit on the graph. I wouldn't, but you could. I would pick easy numbers to do math. 0, 1, 2. Sometimes you do have to pick negative numbers, so -1, -2, not necessarily -17. So I'm just going to pick 0. Pretty easy number to do math with. So now here's the part where a lot of people are still struggling a little bit. A table is saying if x equals some number, what would y have to be? And those two numbers, when you solve out and get y, would make the left side equal the right side. Again, that's what an equation is. It's a rule. Rule that makes the left side equal the right side. So we just need two numbers that make the left side, which is just y, equal the right side, which is some number plus 2. So in order to do it, we could just guess. We could try to figure it out and say, okay, well, what if we could just guess 2 numbers and see if it works out? It's a lot easier to pick a number, plug it in. So I just plugged in 0 for the x, replaced it, substituted it as the real math term. Now I can very easily figure out what y would have to be in order for the left side to equal the right side. I just do the math over there. Y would have to equal 2 if x was 0. If you want to plug them back in just to make sure it works, not a bad idea. So I would say, okay, well, if this is truly the right ordered pair, meaning it's a solution, so this should be a solution because it should make the left side equal the right side. When we graph a line is all the possible solutions. That's all review stuff. So if I plugged this back in, again, that's the x, that's the y, it better make the left side equal the right side. So I'm going to plug in for y, I'm going to plug in 2. Nothing else changes except for the variables. We don't ever change. Oh, this came up yesterday a couple times. Don't ever change a number in an equation. The variables are the only things that you change. If it's a number, that's the number. You can't change that, make it something else. You can do math with it, like you can add it to something, but you can't just make it something else. What was x? So x was 0. Rest of the equation is the plus 2. So if you do the math, sure enough, you get an equal equation. The left side equals right side. That's the same thing you do every single time. I spend a lot of time on that. That's all. I mean, that will get you through every graphing problem you do for the rest of your life. You get good at math part. Well, actually in algebra, you get calculus. So you just can do that one thing. You don't have to learn how to do slope intercept. You don't have to learn how to do the one called standard form. You don't have to learn how to do, well, x and y intercepts is kind of the same thing. That's graphing. Now, some equations are more difficult to figure out the y part. So it gets a little trickier, but if you get good at that one method, that'll get you all the way through algebra, and actually that would get you through algebra 2 when it comes to graphing. Give me another number and we'll finish off a couple more real quick. All right, what do? I want you guys to do it real quick. Come up with the x and the y. 5 is your x. So again, when you're doing this on the quiz, you would say 5. I know, you should always pick easy numbers. 5 is your x. Plug that in. That's pretty easy on this one. It'll be more difficult on the absolute value, but I'm going to do 1 or 2 examples of that before you have to do it. And you'll practice for at least 45, 50 minutes. All right, so shouldn't take you long. I'm going to kind of keep, if you're still working, that's fine. I'm going to show you what it should look like. So y is still y. I don't know what that is yet. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I do know that I'm making the x 5. I'll plug that in. The rest of the equation stays the same. Do not change the plus 2. I just jacked that up. There. So the plus 2 never changes. Hey, look who's here. So y then equals 5 plus 2. 5 would be 7. Do a negative number real quick. Do negative something a little bit bigger. Negative what? Do bigger than negative. Well, technically it's smaller than negative 2. It would be left of negative 2. Do negative 7. So do a negative, because you're going to have to know how to use negatives with absolute value. Sometimes you have to choose a negative for absolute value. So same exact, it doesn't matter if the x is negative, it's still the same steps. Y doesn't change because that's what we're trying to figure out. The x changes to whatever the number is you use, in this case, negative 7. We then say plus 2. So a lot of you are still struggling with how to do positive and negative numbers. It is. If you have a negative number, so think of positives and negatives as representing money. You either have money or you owe money. And then you either get money Or you get, do you know what a bill is? Like you get a bill for something, like that means you owe somebody money. So if I am at -7, if that's my starting number, that means I'm in debt. I owe somebody $7. That's what a negative number would represent, owing money. If Delaney, who is super nice, has $2 and she hates that I'm in debt, she might give me $2. So +2 is represents somebody giving you money. So if I'm in debt 7, and if Delaney gives me 2, I can pay off some of my debt, not all of it, but I can pay off some of it. So where would I be at? I'm in debt still, but only 5 now. So in debt means a negative number, but I'm only in debt $5. So that's how you can use. Now there's a way to do it with number lines. You could start at the -7. If you're adding, you move 2 to the right. So if you don't understand how that money thing works, you could draw out a number line. Where can I do that? Here, I'll just slide it. So a lot of you, I hate doing this because, again, no offense if you're still doing it, but I feel like this, like we should be past this by now. You have to do it, do it. But the money thing is where I would prefer you be at in high school. But if you have to draw a number line, 7, 6, -5, -4, -3. So if I am at -7, so I'm right here. On a number line, if you add a positive number, you're moving right. So if I add +2, I move right to, I'm at -5. You got to do it that way since you can't use a calculator on most of our lessons. Do the number line thing. You'll actually already have a number line because you'll have a graph on the page. So you could just use the number line on the graph. The x-axis is just a number line. Any questions on any of that? So that's the how we do just a general graphic. We're specifically going to work a couple of absolute value. Any questions first? All right, so graphing absolute values, same concept. You do the same exact thing. You should have already done this one, so I'm going to go ahead and do it for you. Number 1, this is from the packet. If you don't have the packet, I mean, you should have had it from the sub, or you should have gotten it from me in last class, unless you missed both of those days. First thing, start up with a table. I need X and Y values to graph. Now with absolute value, you're going to need at least 3 instead of 2. But what's the shape going to look like? It's going to be a V typically. Sometimes it'll be a regular V. Sometimes it'll be an upside down V. But it's typically going to be a V. It's not going to be a sideways V. Some of you are getting a sideways V. It's not normally going to be a sideways V. I'm not saying it can never be one, but put it this way. If you get a sideways V on the quiz, you may want to check it. So here's, you'll repeat it, Kaylee. What were you going to say about the starting number? Yeah, when you're dealing with absolute value, the best starting number isn't always 0. It is sort of related to 0, but you want to look in the brackets, in the absolute value symbols, right there. And you want to pick the X value that makes the inside of that come out to 0. So you've got to kind of figure out, well, what number, if I plugged it in for X and then did the math in there, what number would make that come out to be 0? I'm going to give you the shortcut instead of even going any farther with that. It's the opposite number of the number that's in it. So if there's a -2 in there, the number you choose is +2. If it's a +4, then you would choose -4 for your X. So now I'm going to do all the math. Do not forget to do the end part if there is one. Oh, if there's not a number in there, then you would choose 0. Then you would choose 0 as your first one. There's no number in there at all. So if there's a number in there, choose the opposite of that number. If there's no number in there, which there were quite a few of those, I think, yeah, 3, 4, then you would start with 0 on those. So now I just plug in 2 into that equation. I would say y equals, oh, actually here, I want to make sure you understand these. So write all of these steps down, even for the 0. A lot of you are skipping steps and you're missing the table part of the problem. And if you don't get the table right, you obviously can't graph it. So I just plugged in 2 for x. So that's your first, well, actually your first step should really be writing the equation down. I should have written the equation. So that should really be your first step. Then you do the math just inside the brackets. Leave the brackets. A lot of you are getting rid of the brackets on that first step. Do not get rid of the brackets yet. Not at least until you are getting all of them right. Because that's where most of the mistakes are coming, going from here to here, and then that makes your next step. So now I get rid of the brackets by changing or taking away the negative sign if there's a negative sign in it. Because remember, that's what the brackets do. They change it to positive. So if there's a negative sign in there, remove it, and then the brackets are gone. If there's no negative sign, then you just remove the brackets. You don't need them. And I still have the subtract 4. And then finally, 0, subtract 4. If you have no money and you get a bill for $4, what number are you at? -4. Or if you're at 0, subtracting a number means you move left. Adding a number, you move right. Subtracting means you move left. So if you're at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, you'd be at -4. So if you want to use the number line, that's the way that works. So the first point we got, I mean, most of you have done this one already. That's the first point we got. So why do we choose that 2? Who can explain why we just chose that? We want to choose a number that makes the inside of those brackets 0, but why? Why are we doing that? Just go pick 3. I think the section. He's never shown up one single thing. Why do we choose the 2? Like, why are we trying to make the inside of the bracket 0? What was important about that? Like when you graph it, when you come up with a graph, what's significant about that point to -4? Or whatever the point winds up being. Come on, somebody say something. I mean, it will be the first point we graph, but there's a reason why we want to pick this too. There's something special about where that point is going to be in our graph. Visually. That part of the line we graph is very important. It's called the vertex. You can think of it as the corner. So when you make the V, you got the tippy tip point of the V. That's that point. When you choose a number that makes the inside of this 0, that right there will be either the bottom of the V, like the point at the bottom, if it's going to be a V, or if it's an upside down V, it'll be the tippy top point. It's the corner of the graph, of the shape that you can draw the line between. So we now know our graph from here is going to go in different directions. It's either going to go up left and up right, or down left and down right. So all we have to do if we pick the correct first point is just pick 2 more points. And that will give us what happens on the left and the right of that point. So when you pick the 2 more points, you need to pick a number less than this. So I'll pick 0. Now 0 is not always less than, because if this first number was -1, 0 is not less than -1. So you got to make sure you understand how to pick a number less. If 2 is here, these numbers, so here's 2, right? These numbers would be less than 2. These numbers would be greater than 2. So that's how you can pick it. If you're struggling, just find whatever you chose for the first value. Anything left of that is less than that number. Anything right of that is greater than that number. So for my less than number, I picked a number to the left, which was 0. For my greater than number, what do you want me to pick? I'm not going to call on. I'm going to call on Sophia. Or greater than number, I think. Huh? Say 8. Okay, 5. 5 works. It's right of the 2. All right, so any number to the right. So I'm going to pick 5. Because Sophia so enthusiastically. So I want you guys to try to do the math on those 2. Because some of you have already done it, just ignore what you've done, just make sure you go through the steps and figure it out again. Because this is pretty much what you're doing for your quiz. Actually, it's almost exactly what you're doing. Give you, I have to do 2 of them, so I'll give you like 4 minutes, 2 per. You need to get started practicing. Start the quiz. It's actually about 30-35 minutes. I'm gonna kind of start writing out. I'm in different colors, so let's say y equals. That should be what you wrote for your first step on one of them. Hopefully you already wrote this one down, so I'm going to erase that. In green. That should be what you had for your first step. Done that for both of them. I'm not even super worried about the one on the left, so I'm just going to do the one on the right. And you should have all of these steps written out for right now until you, again, I would always do all of these steps. That's where most people make the mistake. And maybe a little asterisk there. Some people make the mistake there. All right, so there was your answer for when x is 0. So you plug in 0 for the x. I didn't write the original equation, probably should have, but I didn't have a lot of room. So I plug in 0 for x, because I'm saying, what if x was 0? If x was 0, what would y have to be? That's what the table means. So I need to plug in x for 0 and see what y would be. Solve for y. Well, 0 subtract 2 means I go into debt, $2, so I'm -2. I still have the subtract 4. Do not forget to write the numbers that are in the equation. A lot of people are still forgetting to finish the rest of the equation. I then change that to positive. That's the biggest mistake right there. People are not changing this to positive, and then they're getting a wrong number right here. So now I say, okay, well, if that changes to positive, now I just subtract 4 from that. And then this answer is -2. I do not change that to positive. That's not inside the brackets. I got rid of the brackets. Brackets are completely gone from the problem. You only change what's inside the brackets to a positive. So my final answer for that would be -2. That would be the point I put on the graph. So 0 is my x, -2 is my y. That. And then if I'm just going to do the 5 real quick. That one's a lot easier. 3 subtract 4. It's already a +3, so I just leave it like that. So that'd be -1 is what you should have gotten for that. If you plug in 5, you'd get -1. That's right there. So now you'll notice if I connect these dots and the lines go on forever. Remember, lines always go on forever. I could always keep choosing numbers. So you technically should be drawing arrows on the end like that. But you'll notice I got the V by only choosing 3 numbers. Some of you chose like 5 or 6 numbers 2 days ago, and you still had a straight line because you weren't choosing one number to the left of the bottom point or top point and one number to the right. You were always choosing numbers like on one side of that point. So you'll always just get 1/2 of the graph. That's why I say pick the number that makes this 0 first, and then you can pick something to the left and the right of that number, and you'll get both sides of the graph with only three values here. Make sure you do some problems on the second page where there's a negative in front of the absolute value, because that changes everything. When you do, like I'll do one for you with this one, if I do this and if I plug in 1, so I'm going to make x equal 1. 1, what is it? Subtract 2, subtract 2. So I get -1 here. Here, tell you what, hold on. Hold that thought. So I get y equals negative, still have the absolute value signs, but that now changes to positive. I do not get rid of that. A lot of people are getting rid of that way too early. This does change to positive, but the negative sign is still there, which means +1 using this actually becomes -1. So that's why I say make sure, don't think that you're good just because you're doing well on the front page. Second page is much more difficult. There is something on the quiz that involves this negative sign in front. So now my y is actually y equals -3 for that one. So the reason this is negative isn't because it still changes the inside to positive, but then outside we have a negative sign. This actually is when you get an upside down V. Most of the time, that's when you get an upside down V, because you have this negative sign out in front of the absolute value. So you'll see if you do a few of them on the back page, I'm pretty sure most of those turn into upside down V's. All right, so go ahead and practice. I'll walk around and help. We'll start the quiz in about only 3 questions and only 1 where you have to graph. So the other 2 you just do 1. You just evaluate, by the way, what's evaluating? Yeah, evaluate is plugging in the number. All of this is evaluating, picking an x. Well, actually, I picked the x for you on the quiz for the one where I say evaluate. So you don't have to pick an x. You just take that value for x and you plug it in for x and you solve for y. That's what evaluate means. Take the number I give you, plug it in for whatever the variable is, which I'll just tell you it's if you plug it in for x, and then you solve for y. That's all evaluating. All right, so practice. Make sure you try one on the, at least one on the second page. If you don't have the pages, that's what these are. These are problems on the back page. So if you don't have the pages, you can just do those. I'll change the color on them so they stand out. So all the let's try that again. Yeah. All these in red are ones you can do that are on the back page if you don't have the pages to do them. Ow. Ow. All right, go ahead and work. You don't need to watch me. There you go. So those 3 in red are from the back page, which I didn't like paste into this lesson. These are from the front page. So if you don't have the pages, there's a good one you can do. Number 6, you see how there's a circle there, even though it's not technically on the 6th one. That one's a good one to practice from the front page. These are good ones to practice from the back page. Once you do them, you need to graph them. So if you don't have graph paper, and you're doing them from the problems up here, I'll give you a piece of graph paper so you can graph. You got 30 something minutes. You can really, you can do this one time, then you can do a. Oh, actually, you're not. Say, I don't think I have any, but I do. If there's. Oh, no, there's. Oh, but wait. Like, are you okay with hands? You can get it. Looks like there's certainly enough to use for the. So let me set a timer so I remember to do the quiz on time. 30 minutes should be equivalent to 20 minutes. I'll walk around, but if you have questions, call me over. Oh, actually, I have something for you as well. Kind of got a little wrinkle. So, That's for buying your pictures. That's the picture you took right there on the front. I do not have any food, but if you do, you can go ahead and eat. Like I don't have food for you guys, so I'm saying. That's good for me. You have a snack on your own and you're starving. Nothing. So you can try to do number 6. Yeah. That calculator on top of where the pencils normally are. That's tough. You can be out of luck.
You have a pen?
Pen.
Yeah.
You can do it in pen.
I have a pencil, but it's not a pen.
Well, let's get you a pencil. That is much better for the graph. I think about the pen, number, so if we say 2, it's -2 is in there, we choose one. Choose the opposite. Good, so that's number you start with, so the first step is to +2. And then try to do the math, I'll come check it, those are definitely trickier when you have the negative sign out in front. This one and that. This one and that. Yeah, I'll come back. Yeah, absolutely. So the only thing that you do going from here to here is you take out any negative signs that are negative signs. Only when you do the number part. Yeah, so 0. Hey, so the perfect timing, that just started practicing for the quiz. So we went over 2 examples. One was just a normal problem with no absolute value, just how to do a table. And then we went over how to do absolute value. So yeah, they have 30 minutes to practice for their quiz. Only 3 questions. If they can do this, that should be good shape. 2. So inside would be 0, but then remember you gotta do this. Stop taking short between. I mean, like not working the problem out. You need to work something like that.
Okay, so here's your table, you're gonna do the same work, yeah. So like, you don't do that, real hard, but because these are absolutely bad.
First number.
This should be
That is.
2 minus.
Yeah, this is. Now. Let's give steps.
Yeah, because your absolute value is the negative.
How this.
Just gonna check the positive. 2 minus. Okay, and then go ahead and graph.
Got 2, so that was that. That was. That's like. Just, okay, so let's go back. You can follow what I did.
Because it's in the back.
There's another number at the end. What were your financials? Well, just tell me, you gotta find it back.
Okay, all right.
No money. There you go. Good. So instead of that zero that you wrote under the Y, what would you write?
So.
Erase that. You're right.
Then it goes back to a negative.
Right now, so now for your
That's
next
negative
number,
on the outside.
you need to pick either a number greater
Yeah,
than
so.
whatever
this
that.
was.
Two. So you get a number
Negative.
greater than that or less than that.
That would be a negative.
Not for your next.
Negative two
Greater
minus
than that or
two
less.
would be.
So what's the number greater than two? Pick four. So for your next X, put four. Now. And do the same thing, so do it right next to it. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Oh,
Outside.
So now you do that. Instead of this.
But there's a one attached to that. So whatever we get here.
Yeah, because that's the number you're choosing.
We're
Reason.
gonna have to choose. Negative.
So for you to
Yeah.
lower that.
And the total thing. Yeah, so let's try it. What we got, a zero? The zero minus two is taken out. Change it to a two.
So what number do you start?
But then we gotta multiply it by a negative.
So
and
you did
So
positive,
that's-
but I said so.
A negative two, negative two. minus two is gonna be negative.
You already did negative. Well, but again, you gotta write negative one. Yeah, absolutely. Whatever number is the opposite of what's in here, that,
Kind of see what he's done
it doesn't
here?
matter what you solve in here,
Yeah,
whatever number you
Okay.
plug in. So it'd be negative one, well, let me see. And then that. Oh, no, so it wouldn't be two though.
see where he's got the negative one here? It changes to a positive one, but because we got the negative out here, it's a negative one. Okay? It just adds a little.
You are in
beat to
debt
it.
$1.
Okay.
One.
So
In
that
debt
would be
$1.
your,
Oh.
whatever you take your absolute value, if it's a positive, it should be a positive, absolute values are positive.
You don't have.
Then
the
if
one.
that negative's on the outside, then it gets back to.
Either one, you're back to even.
Plus
Back to
one.
even.
Plus one.
No, multiplying by one.
Oh.
So that one.
Perfect. So now, so perfect, now that's your second one. So now you've chosen this, the number greater.
When that happens, all you're doing is.
Third number, less than two, which would be an easy number that's less than two, do nothing. One is easy. Here. 0 or 1. I think zero is easier. If you like one, you gotta choose one. Either one of them works. The plug, take one of those two, 0 or 1, and then you plug that in, I'll come back and straight your answer on the. Good.
Okay.
Right.
Come on, man. Glad you are just nice.
So you got your already.
Probably not one. Up there in the floor.
So. Negative answer.
You're blaming them.
So. if-
I know.
Oh, that's fine.
There's zero.
Smaller. You're on track.
And then we're gonna go on the Y. Okay.
Oh, here's the. So you take.
Put one.
What's my?
That's great. So you're on.
I don't understand that. Okay. No. What's the name? I have a question, so.
So you're gonna,
It's still positive, so I don't have to miss it.
writing these symbols down.
Oh, so, yeah.
I started.
Trying to do one. Try to do it one step.
So if I.
And-
I started.
Why does be small? Three. For small.
Ours, this is the woman.
Yeah.
Our, I don't know.
Here's the thing. So what numbers are over? Trying
It's
to.
just, we just start.
Okay.
No number in there,
To see.
then
You
zero.
gotta get that.
Just like I'm.
What's the negative and
So is the second number?
Oh, yeah. So basically, you're always, there's nothing in front of that. So you're always. Bottom, the bottom of your.
That's what you're trying to do. You have to do great on that. Like three different photos. The first one, you're trying to. So I'll have it together. They only saw it in that one. So look.
negative one is inside? Balance. So it's.
One is. And you said.
Or.
It really depends on what's gonna, if I say this one, so like for here.
So what? That's. This is a good mess. Yeah.
Yep, you got it.
Okay.
It's a graph.
Your computer on the.
So what's the next one?
What's the important starting?
Yeah. I gave that.
Well, so which one is?
The starting, we want to get inside the bracket. We want that.
Inside
the bracket, we want this math to become, you don't want it to put zero.
I always had YouTube on.
You want this to become what's helpful for X, right? Instead of that. Yeah, so your X would actually be one. Then we can do the math to get zero. So that's why it's I. So your order that if I show you to do the right order pair, so that order pair. Then need two more orders pairs. I need to make sure. X. Well.
That's really.
Here's what I'm saying.
Or you just gonna pick the right numbers.
So once you pick that first X, the X that has the inside of that, you still are gonna need.
So let's.
When you get a V, you're gonna.
It sounds like that. So just one.
Not probably negative.
And at the end, I add. So let's.
I'll do. That'd be one like that.
Greater than
One like this and then one like this. So,
Called it out, then. Well, the way I might do it right now. Zero.
Four plus three.
first name.
Okay, so these are all the stuff that I don't.
Both have. Here's the thing, let's do it greater. There's only a 100 and there's an 80. One mistake.
Like,
Here's how small. It's just 28%. Nope. If all
See, it's still going straight. What negative one? That's negative one.
Getting here. It's your
It's a whole, like, what's the name? That's what my mom wants to do.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
This doesn't change. Is there any other, what do the brackets do? What did we say the bracket, get rid of what?
I should.
No.
I don't feel like it's that class that I can't do 2 hours.
Here, so what did I do? So this. So here's kind of where the step you're at, right here. You got a -2, only you have a -2 in there. What happened? What did I do to go from that to that? What did those brackets do? That's what you have to do. So that two, that -2, when you go to the next step, changes. You still have.
This question or whenever you first class, you go this right or tops. Mr. Gilbert. That's. What's in class?
So what if we get your name?
So now what I want you to do is write your word pairs. Are you doing a table for this?
I'm gonna change back to our. Because.
I know.
Oh.
It was, no, it was 0.
Wait, sorry. Oh, these guys still have their papers for discussion.
It doesn't make sense. You just solved your optional.
Oh.
So now this should be a V and it should look like it's called symmetrical. Which that does, right? Doesn't that look like it's a perfect? And then just remember it's not.
There we go. Let's do like sometime. Which graph plus one?
I'm sorry, you had one.
Yeah, I got this thing.
Okay.
You don't need.
It's okay.
Even if it's a graph.
Sorry, what?
I'm sort of crying. It just been. I'm sorry for the I'm tired of
There's not an issue with having a short.
Worry about it.
I want you to try to do that again. That one. Just remember the reason that you're so.
So now let's please see if that's true. Let's see real close. One. Got the values already positive. I gotta see that negative. That's negative.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you didn't.
Actually, so.
This.
That's just gonna win.
No, but I live like, I'm not.
I will read it now, do it with a negative. Do the,
So.
Oh, I was talking about.
actually, I'm gonna do one.
I was talking about the good news. I was in my like joking. I was just something that's. It's just like, but it would hurt overall.
And ladies, it's not hard.
Yeah, I was like. Yeah.
All right.
I was. Yes.
Negative.
Says this.
Thank you, ladies.
That's why you did.
Is.
It's negative.
What?
Oh, my God, numbers. Okay, we did that.
Doesn't really.
Yeah, like a small turnaround.
It's-
Oh, my God. Wait, see, I was I can't see her looking because I was going to.
Again, negative sign down. You can take away a negative sign here. The negative sign.
Okay, wait, so.
Zero.
Oh my gosh, we already did this one. Number 4.
I'm really.
And you would get.
I know. But I was not. No, I know. They might. This was. No, I never did.
Now we're.
Oh, yeah, I did. So I never did stuff. Well, yeah. Your last name, so we're last name, like.
We're gonna
No,
take-
I-
What's -7 plus 2?
I think college is one right there. So what's the only thing you have to do different other than that?
You gotta do your best.
Well, no, that's the first step.
What did you do?
This is your test. What do you do with this?
It's different. This doesn't go up this.
Then you just told me to choose one greater. Two, so what do you do with that?
This is just like practice. It's like, girl, what numbers did you look at that? Okay, I'll just look next to it. That's what I usually do.
This is
Or -2.
All right. Okay.
That's what we did. We said-
But yeah, oh my gosh. I didn't know to go to at least.
Now, if we're saying it's two.
We did it.
So I want you to write that out, and again, everything else. You know, Ah.
I don't know how to do going on the back.
What? You're just now getting the ones on the back?
Is this correct? You know what? I called you over here that time.
And go down one now. Yep.
No, because then it will help. You can try. Oh, what this thing? Oh, yeah.
Feeling you forgot about these negatives.
I think it just means that you can make the number. Did I? I hadn't. And if it's.
Oh, good. So what's, yeah, what number are you?
Then you change the negative.
So.
You're trying to.
This is let's be positive.
This, the brackets just take away the negative. This should be two. But then here's the trick.
But I
part.
think.
This becomes positive.
This number's a positive.
Then you still have the negative. Positive. I say, flip side.
This is
Put on
positive.
a ring.
Yeah, actually, why the negative.
Positive.
So, but I'm so sorry.
Those are much trickier, like.
Hey, let's be- Oh, like, oh, never girl. Yes, buddy, girl. No, that's what I'm hearing. It's like, girl, let me go. Oh, no. I have a question. So, would this be two?
Yeah.
Like, maybe.
Yeah.
So where does this, the next sign come in? Where do you put the negative sign in there?
Negative just stays the whole problem, so you're fine, really just fine step. you'll have a number that'll be a negative number, although if it's negative zero, you can really be zero. And then. That's it, you go for that one. Yeah, it's outside, so you're done with the bracket. You got rid of the bracket. They is negatives. But when you do your next X value, that's when it'll be a little tricky.
Should be -4 plus.
So, and I heard you, bud, but that's why you're getting it. Ask me for help with 5 minutes left before the quiz. Kind of bad. Try to say something, but, what I want you to do is create that table for one of the problems, draw something just like that, like just X, Y, and the T chart. So try your next value, and I'll come back and check it out. This is coming to you next, Justin. Again, you guys had a lot of practice time last class. You're trying to learn it in the last 30 minutes before a quiz. I'm not gonna be able to help you. Sometimes I'll have to say, hey, sorry, I've got to go to the people that were actually working the other day. You
No,
can't do this. I told you over and over and over again, over and over and over.
I'm still, I'm here, I need.
I can't tell you yet, girl.
Okay, wait, maybe I don't know.
Perfect.
But that's,
So now, what do you need to choose for your third X?
whatever.
No, that's, you already have a number greater than the -4. This one's a little trickier because now it's less than negative.
No, after you left.
There you go. So you gotta pick a negative number, which is a little tricky. All right, so.
So we have.
You have right. Already positive, but zero. What you have to do.
I'm picturing it. I'm picturing
You can do zero, but then it's gonna be tough with the other number.
That's
I mean,
quiz.
right. If I give
That
it.
means your time wisely.
Whatever your next, plug that in for that. I told you about, like, this, you're substituting. for X. X comes out of the game.
like that. Like, sure we would. But I'm. Those were the first points that I got. What's happening?
Add those up. One inside those. Have a positive. You just say. Anything that.
You weren't even in the camera frame, but it's. My hair's gone.
I could. Why are you class?
So it's in, X is zero.
I'm giving up. Okay, Let's do zero.
You get a negative number here, that's what it
No, it's negative, I just divided it. What? So then it will be zero.
is.
Negative. Negative. That makes sense.
Oh.
All right.
That's a mess.
This, sorry, this is. I like to think. So.
Let me try.
Did not ask me a word I've been told to. Practice.
So maybe something.
Why?
So, you gotta start getting down.
I like that.
Kind of what?
Zero.
3 years, but that doesn't fly.
We don't.
Yes.
I said,
Yeah.
so the brass, so here's the tricky one.
Negative
No,
two.
okay, but because we're in the positive.
Okay, wait.
Positive.
I have a
And
negative.
now I've got this negative. hanging out.
Means it's positive. That's- that's-
Oh, no, I would back.
No.
There. Say I don't ever forget your right hand. Now, technically, we would need to do a number greater than. Get our. One. And I want. Yeah, real quick, tell me what you get. By then, I'm gonna maybe just check. All right, put all your stuff up.
Zero. When I do it, I keep saying zero. Like, what?
Yeah, if you have a negative out in front, that's what it is. Perfect. And I mentioned it earlier, yeah. So that is good. And I'm assuming.
How many weeks? It's like, it's like, right, like this.
Remember, that may not sign
But that's the.
that.
Right. I don't think time will be an issue. There's only 3 problems. 2 of them you're not graphing. I'm giving you the X and you're just plugging it in and solving it. And then the graphing one will take a little longer. I would say personally, I'd save the graph for last and do the other 2. But if you just get the other 2 right, you can class. And then you get as much of the graph done as you can. Because you get it, start. No calculators. I know there are calculators laying around. You know how to do the calculator. So look that up. Don't worry, that was pretty. Alright. So you lie and supposed to. Today's the 20th, actually. I haven't changed it. You can check, it, good. Good on this, Nick? You're gonna change the word. Oh, well. Never mind. I can not do that. Let's change these. That'll be ever changed. Gotta change these. One. You can't have one. Parts. Yeah. Alright, so today's the 20th. That's wrong up on the board. You have like less than 30 minutes, but like I said, last class, they're not taking anywhere near 30 minutes. Either you know what you're doing or you don't. So sitting there and staring at it. No. Again, I would save the graph for last. Show all of your work. Oh, time.
Fine. Backside, actually bring your equipment. You're not done, right? No.
Go through the calculator. Oh. Still plenty of time. So don't freak out yet. I'll tell you when you should freak out.